And now the area forecast for the next 24 hours. Viking 40s, variable 4 in east at first, otherwise northerly 5 to 7, perhaps gale 8 later.
They'll come from fishing boats and pleasure craft, from the pub and the fireside. It doesn't matter who's in trouble or why. They'll come, and more than are needed. That's the tradition, and tradition runs strong in the RNLI. Times have changed since clippers and barks, schooners and smacks plied the channel and were wrecked in their hundreds around Land's End and the Lizard. Today, wrecks are fewer but more dramatic, like the Torrey Canyon. Only the lifeboats have hardly changed, like the boat from Penlee, pointed at both ends, a best speed of 9 knots in fair weather. It's a traditional boat, and change is slow, as the Secretary of the RNLI, Captain Nigel Dixon, confesses.
I personally believe that development does take a long time. We have now got the fast diesels, which we didn't have in the past. One only had fast petrol engines. For example, the Merlins, they were marinized, they were not very reliable. I don't think we'd had advanced enough in our hull design to cope with these extra speeds. But I agree with you, the development has taken a long time, and I wish we could have done it earlier. But we are, in fact, the ahead of the game, as it were, compared to other countries, and we are introducing the fast conventional lifeboat, if I may use that expression, before anybody else.
The first of the RNLI's 52-foot, 20-knot Arran-class boats to be built so far, on trial with the Guernsey lifeboat crew.
What sort of boat did you have before this one?
We had the Arran prototype immediately before this one, but before that we had the Barnett type, a 52-foot Barnett type.
Yeah. What's the biggest differences?
Well, obviously the manoeuvrability and speed, and also the seakeeping qualities are a lot better as well.
Did you find there was any sort of rather conservative opposition when you suddenly got this very smart, very modern, un-lifeboat looking boat?
Yes, we at first we looked at it and we thought, my goodness, what is this? But after going on board and doing a short run, we were soon convinced that this was our lifeboat.
I must say, seeing you stand here doing 20 knots, just twiddling about with one knob to go hither and thither, it's a very long way from Grace Darling.
Yes.
Well, I suppose you can say the first development stage is in the drawing office, and we have got our own drawing office staff and offices at our headquarters in Poole, supervised by a naval architect and a chief engineer. They produce the rough outlines and scantlines, and they're examined carefully by our boat committee and then given to the tank testing team, and we use the British Hovercraft Corporation at Cowes to carry out our tank tests. Not only do they do tank tests with models, they do scale model tests at sea for seakeeping and direction-keeping qualities. Now, if all that proves satisfactory, then we've got to produce the working drawings for the boat builder.
In the case of the Arran, how far were the working drawings modified as a result of the tank testing and the channel testing?
Not a great deal, but there was a certain amount of modification, naturally. There always is in development. You never get it right absolutely first time. Well, then, by that time, you've discussed with the boat yard, say at Littlehampton, where the Arrans were all built, and you agree that they should have the order, and then you get very close to them with your drawings, because after all, they've got to interpret the drawings and build the boat. They get the drawings from us, and they start building. And we have our own supervisors, we call them overseers, at Littlehampton full-time, supervising the boats so that they are produced in accordance with the drawings.
Lifeboats still do have hearts of oak. The RNLI even employed a man whose sole job it was to scour the country for trees suitably shaped to make keels. There's something nostalgically old-fashioned about the way lifeboats are built. In these days of moulded glass fibre, such patient craftsmanship seems almost a paradox. Some boat builders disparage this care. They say the RNLI demand belt and braces, and then another belt and braces, just to be sure. But lifeboats are built to go to sea when conditions are bad enough to drive everyone else into port. Getting a boat off the drawing board and onto station at sea can and does take time.
7 to 8 years.
As long as that, yes.
These things take a very long time indeed. And I know this from my experience in the Navy. To produce a new design of ship takes a very long time.
In the war, the Navy had high-speed motor torpedo boats and the RAF had air-sea rescue launches. Yet only now is the RNLI's first high-speed Arran boat going into service.
Thank you for the very kind welcome you have given me this evening. For my part, I am extremely grateful and happy to be in St. Peter Port to perform the naming ceremony of your new lifeboat, the first such ceremony I have carried out, and I am particularly glad to be able to do so in the 150th anniversary year of the Royal National Lifeboat Institution. I would like to thank the States of Guernsey for the support they give to the lifeboat service, and thank also the Arran Appeal Committee, who have worked so hard to collect the magnificent sum of over £55,000, an enormous contribution towards this new lifeboat. On behalf of us all, I offer to Coxswain Pettit and his crew our best wishes in their great task, and may this new boat carry on the proud traditions of the lifeboat service. It is now my pleasure and privilege to name your new lifeboat Sir William Arnold. May God bless her and all who sail in her.
The RNLI is the oldest lifeboat service in the world, and to celebrate its 150th anniversary, lifeboats from all over Europe went to Plymouth this summer. Different coasts demand different boats, yet around Britain there's as great a variety of coast and sea as there is round the whole of Europe. So did Captain Dixon see any ideas he wished he'd had?
This is a very difficult question, actually. There's some very interesting boats here, but I think we must remember that every country's got its own problems and designs accordingly. The two big Scandinavian boats, the Swedish boat and the Norwegian boat, well, they have to do very different work compared to us. They follow their fishing fleets, and they are fully manned day and night throughout the year. So, and there's no requirement for us to do that. The French boat, you will notice, is just behind you now. This is very similar to our conventional slow boats.
The unmistakable lines of a West German boat, a high-powered, fast mother boat, and tucked on the stern a small daughter boat, designed precisely to cope with the problems peculiar to the German coastline.
Well, we don't really need one like that because this German boat operates in the Baltic, and they have very shallow water quite far out. Now, we don't have those conditions, and so if they get a casualty on the shallows, say 25 miles away, they sail the big rescue cruiser with its daughter boat, and when they get in shallow water, they launch the daughter boat, they effect the rescue, bring back to the mothership, and return to harbour.
Wouldn't that be useful somewhere like the Goodwins, say?
No, the distances are so small. What other boats have we got here? I think this one is probably the most interesting. It's a Norwegian boat, it's a new one, it's an aluminium boat. And we shall be very interested to see exactly how this works out. She's brand new, and we shall follow her progress and watch her very carefully, because from the reports I've received, she's a very fine boat. She's 45 foot, I think about 20 knots, and she's an interesting boat.
One of the RNLI's most revolutionary and successful craft, the Atlantic 21, fast, manoeuvrable, ideal for operating off pleasure beaches. There's a demand for these boats from all over the world, yet it sometimes seems the RNLI treats building them more as a cottage industry than as a potential commercial source of earning badly needed cash. Today, ships aren't often wrecked off the beaches of southern England, but yachts get into trouble, children drift out to sea on inflatable beds, dinghies lose oars, and holidaymakers with little understanding of, and even less respect for, the sea risk their lives. They'll go out in the worst of weathers and the worst of seas. Compared with traditional boats, they look almost toy-like, but they too are lifeboats, and the men who drive them are lifeboatmen. It's a despairing irony that the RNLI's best public image is always underlined by disaster, a reminder that lifeboatmen not only risk, but sometimes lose their lives. In Fraserburgh, in northeast Scotland, they've had to mourn too often. Like Fraserburgh, Macduff is a fishing port, yet the crew of the boat aren't all fishermen or even seamen. One is a plumber.
Well, I mean, they wanted to place a boat somewhere along the coastline here, and I think it was offered to Fraserburgh initially, but they wanted one of the larger ones. You know, and then they thought, well, what else? Next best thing, I suppose Macduff would be then. You know.
And what made you decide to volunteer to be a lifeboatman?
Well, somebody's got to do it, you know. I mean, there's no use asking any of the local fisher lads to go on a lifeboat. The fact, I mean, they're out at sea, you know, most of the time. So there's very little point in them being, you know, a member of the crew as such.
What was your wife's reaction when you said you were going to join the lifeboat service?
She was very understanding. She just said, good luck, you know.
Do you think she was worried at all?
I suppose deep down there must be a bit, you know. I mean, it's all right on a decent kind of day to go for a wee trip, you know, but I mean, if you get a really dirty, filthy night, and then it would be a different story.
How far does the fact that Fraserburgh has lost 2 or 3 boats, how far does that worry you, working in the same sort of waters?
Well, it's crossed my mind, but, well, that's in the hands of God, I would say.
Well, you don't actually worry about this when you're out. I mean, all the time that you're out, you're pretty aware of the sea. If the sea really wants you, the sea will take you kind of style. But you sort of put that disasters out of your mind, you know, and just concentrate on a job you're doing, be it a rescue or an exercise.
How bad are the sea conditions here?
Well, in the winter they're pretty bad. The water's shallow around this coast, of course, and the swell comes in from the northeast, and as it hits the shallow water, it rises very steep here.
What sort of size seas do you get?
But during a winter gale, you'll get anything up to 40 feet. Sometimes you'll get 40 feet and broken in the top.
What was your wife's reaction when you said you wanted to join the lifeboat?
She's a wee bit concerned when we get a call and the phone rings maybe 2:30 in the morning and the wind's howling. She's a bit concerned. She doesn't say anything, just sort of cheerio and watch your sail. That's about it.
You're aware of the risks. I myself were at sea fishing in both these occasions. You talked about Fraserburgh and the Long Hope boat. It was bad weather, but I suppose it's something you learn to live with.
Since 1945, the lifeboats and inshore rescue boats of the RNLI have saved nearly 20,000 lives. In that time, 51 lifeboatmen have been killed, nearly half of them in the waters off Macduff. So how did the coxswain set about picking a crew to serve in some of the worst waters in the world?
Well, I don't know, just to give it some thought and who was available in the town, and knowing that people being a local man here. Come to think, more or less, these were the people who are on it now that you saw today. They are the people that came to my mind and the people that I thought I would like to serve under me if I were to be coxswain of a life.
It takes a special courage to put to sea when all others are fleeing for shelter, but no lifeboatman would ever admit it. To them, it's a job. The cost can be death, as it was for 9 men of Caister, remembered by a stained glass window in the village church. On November the 14th, 1901, the boat put to sea in a northeast gale. Trying to claw off the shore, she was set aback and capsized in the surf. Even though she was on the beach, only 3 men escaped. At the inquiry into the death of 9 men and the loss of the boat, a witness was asked if perhaps the weather had been so atrocious that the coxswain was trying to put back to the shore. No, the witness said, Caister men never turned back. In the 112 years between 1857 to 1969, the Caister lifeboat saved more lives than any other boat around the coasts of Britain. Yet, on paper at least, Caister is no place to station a lifeboat, or so the RNLI decided in 1969. It was too exposed to the violent seas whipped up by northeast gales sweeping down from the Arctic. Launching the boat across the beach and into the short, broken breakers of the North Sea was a desperate hazard. So, in 1969, the RNLI stationed a bigger, faster boat just along the coast at the deep-water port of Galston, and withdrew the Caister boat. But Caister men not only never turn back, they never give up. The village is fiercely possessive and proud of its record, so, deprived of their official boat, they bought their own. To villager and lifeboatman alike, the first rumours they heard that the RNLI was to withdraw their boat were unbelievable.
That was, that was a buzz got around for a start, and then when we eventually, we didn't believe it. When it got through a little more, we had to take it for granted, and then we started to put up a fight. But that took a while to sink in, and we went on, called meetings. We had the RNLI people down, and they put their view, and we put ours, and went on from there, like.
So what did you do when they actually decided they were going to take it away?
We naturally got together, formed a committee, and told the RNLI people what we were going to do. We didn't have no opposition. People rallied round.
Then we did have a talk with Admiral Woods, the chairman of the institution, about it. And we told him that you didn't give in the war when you were in the Navy, you didn't give in to the Germans. In the case the lifeboatmen not got to give in to the institution, we were going to carry on our own. And he said if I was in your position, I'd do the same.
It was a case of rallying round your friends and their friends, and we went round holiday camps and with boxes, and any way that we could raise money, we did so, and we got a great response from everyone round the boat. And the holiday makers came down and left us donations and that in the sheds, and well, everyone seemed to fathom in we got everything we seemed to want, but we just sheer hard work, that was the only thing to it.
We got the good history behind us, but we want to keep ours going. We don't want this just die like other stations have. I was down Clovelly recently, and they had all the same disappointments we did, and I spoke to all the people there, and they put up the same fight as we did. I say, but you ain't got a boat back. We have, and they say, well, they are. You're tougher than us. So.
The helicopter has been the most dramatic single advance in saving life at sea since the RNLI itself was formed 150 years ago. Today, in 1974, the RNLI is only one part of a vast and sophisticated search and rescue operation.
Does the down thrust from this have any serious impact on people being rescued?
Well, there's a very great difficulty in hovering over a dinghy or something like this. Of course, the wash will reflect the move it away. So
this is what I had in mind.
You have to leap out of the dinghy to be picked up from the water.
Yes.
At 60 miles, he could pick up 2 or 3 certainly. He can get very, very many more in, but at a short range. If it's something in the Solent, he can get half a dozen or more.
Yeah, we can be scrambled off the hard standing and in the air in well under 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Nav tower, it'd take us about 5 minutes, 5 or 6 minutes.
You'll recall that at our last meeting we had a map showing the helicopter coverage for search and rescue all round the coasts of the United Kingdom. And I think our general conclusion was that the coverage was good, with the possible exception of the west of Scotland. We wanted to look particularly at the west of Scotland.
4 times a year, a joint search and rescue committee meets to coordinate the services of bodies such as the Royal Navy, the RAF, Trinity House, the Department of Trade, the Coast Guards, and the RNLI itself.
And the map shows the radius of a curve 150 nautical miles from Aberdeen. Now that was drawn because we have at Aberdeen, at Dice, a helicopter which is a civilian helicopter, which we have under contract from British Airways, I think.
The British Airways helicopter at Dice near Aberdeen can be converted from cargo and passenger carrying to life-saving in minutes. In the North Sea, around the Shetlands and in the Celtic Sea, the use of helicopters for search and rescue work will increase because of oil.
Emergency speed lever.
All three are.
Helicopters don't compete with lifeboats, they're complementary. Each has its own advantages and drawbacks of speed, range and capacity. Oil rigs also serve as fuel dumps, so vastly increasing helicopters' range. They also employ highly paid men who more and more are taking to boats to relax at weekends, so increasing the need for life-saving services. Today, thanks to oil rigs and their helicopter tenders, the North Sea is better patrolled and therefore safer for seamen than it has ever been.
The commanding officer of the squadron
There are those who argue that the whole search and rescue operation should be tidied up and made entirely professional. It sometimes seems that after coordinating, the Search and Rescue Committee's most important job is to stop empire building, to preserve the present system which may seem a typically British ramshackle sort of operation, but does work. At least the committee was responsible for the only civilian-manned search and rescue base in the world, until the RAF took it over, at Manston in Kent.
Okay, fair enough then. We'll get airborne. An SO tank. Okay, we'll get airborne. He doesn't require a doctor to go with him, do he? Okay, then fair enough. We'll get airborne and go on down. Cheers.
I repeat, 25 miles southwest of Dungeness, course east.
A routine but typical call to ferry an injured man ashore from a ship in the Channel, a medivac. It would take a lifeboat half a day, a helicopter less than an hour.
Can you check, hold on please, can you check, see whether or not the head injury was due, there was a head injury involved with the unconsciousness, please? Good afternoon, casualty. Coast Guard helicopters at Manston. We've been scrambled for a medivac from a tanker about 25 miles southwest of Dungeness. We would like to bring him into you. Apparently he has suffered from unconsciousness.
We're sighted here on our port bow there. You see it all right, over?
32 minutes after takeoff, the tanker was sighted in mid-channel.
Instructions about course heading, etc. We'll stand by 16 for the time being, over. And what's that? And as well, further aircraft, put them down on it. Come back now, put a bit of top step over. Steady, 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 steady.
Lifeboatmen prefer helicopters to answer such calls. They cost the RNLI money, long hours at sea, and too often are for something as trivial as a broken finger. They reduce lifeboats to unpaid ferries for ships in the Channel. Such calls may reduce suffering, even on rare occasions save life, yet to many they're an abuse of the system. If the RAF or the Department of Trade sends a helicopter, the taxpayer, not the shipping company, has to pay, to save a ship the time and cost of putting into port to land its own sick.
Roger. The respiration level when quiet, only intake 6 of water, no vomiting.
The annual junket for the RNLI's fundraisers, those who by their work during the year raise hundreds of thousands of pounds for the Institute. But behind the gaiety, an aching worry gnaws at the RNLI. The service costs nearly £4 million a year to run, and it's going to cost more. Charity balls raise a little, legacies raise rather more, but street collections are drying up and it's becoming increasingly difficult to see where the next pennies are coming from. Only once, 100 years ago, has the RNLI not relied on charity and accepted money from the government. It fears that government money again would mean government strings, possibly even a loss of independence and a loss of identity.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I must say it was a tremendous excitement for me when I was asked to come along this evening, because frightfully nice to come along to something which is not only interdenominational and aquatic, but also alcoholic as well. Only charged me £1.25 too, which I thought was nice.
The finances of the RNLI have always been a bad joke, a worry for the whole of its 150 years' existence. New boats are needed, they can cost up to £100,000 each. Tickets for dinner and Nimo contribute hardly more than a ha'porth of tar. Flag days, whist drives, jumble sales, overworked local committees all do their bit to keep the RNLI going. But for how long, and should they have to? Those relaxing from the toil of raising funds must sometimes ask themselves if shipping lines and those who can afford boats and yachts can't also afford, dare one mention it, an annual fee to the RNLI. For the officials of the Institute, bankruptcy is a serious matter and could be just round the corner.
Of course I can. That night, after the penultimate hymn, he duly climbed up into the board, but sure enough, on the lectern was a piece of paper. He turned it over, and on it was written the one word, constipation. And there was a long, long silence, much to the glee of the vicar. And finally the bishop said, "My sermon this evening, the text for my sermon this evening is taken from the book of Exodus." And Moses took the tablets and went into the wilderness.
Out of all the money the RNLI does raise, very little will end up in the pockets of lifeboatmen.
And if they're out all night long, he wouldn't get £5.
So why do you do it?
Well, you know, how do people do these things?
I don't know. If you stop and thought, perhaps you wouldn't, but it may be somebody's father, and it comes to you. They need to be rescued, and that's it.
Well, you're just following somebody else's footsteps, ain't you?
Yeah, that's right, Charlie. That's right.
You're taking over somebody else, and one of these days someone else will take over from we. And
you know, we're fishing and...
We're all fishermen, and you live by the sea. And when you live by the sea, perhaps one day you might be glad to see a lifeboat come in to help you out. So touch wood, I hope it doesn't happen.
Half of them are in trouble, never deal with the sea, do they?
No.
You know, they're
amateurs,
weekend
sailors,
yachters, and they're the obstacles. From the summertime, you do more work summertime there than what you do any time, because there's weekend sailors, have a gale of wind of a night, then we're bound to be out.
Yeah, if you buy
bound to be out. There's 50 yachts passing here every day summertime.
If you buy a car, the first thing you have is highway code. You buy a boat, you don't give them a thought, do you?
No, exactly.
Right. You've got a boat, the first thing you're going to do is go out, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Why be a lifeboatman?
I don't know, the job came up and I took it, and now it's in my blood, and I don't think I could give it up if I tried.
Even though you're seasick?
Even though I'm seasick.
Do you get frightened?
Oh yeah, I get frightened, but the thing is, I think everybody, if they're honest, gets a bit frightened at times.
Do you ever think of yourselves, any of you, as being brave men? Is that a thought you ever had?
No.
No, I don't think
it's just a job.
It's just a job that comes along. Somebody got to do it, don't it? Somebody got to go out in there to do it.
What would you do if the government took over?
Government took over?
Yeah.
Well, as coxswain of the boat, as the government took over, and you was called, you go float no matter who's in charge of the boat, whether it's government or whether it's the RNLI or whatever it is. If somebody's in difficulty, someone say it needs help, you go float in any case.
What would you do if it was made a full-time job, a full-time salaried job? Would you stay a lifeboatman?
No, not if it was full-time. No, I like doing it as I'm doing it. Full-time, I'd rather do my own job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No, that's...
Yes, but you would still go afloat, Frank, to save life, no matter what.
I still go afloat to save life, but I wouldn't take on a full-time lifeboat job.
No, I would like to take a full-time lifeboat job, won't you?
I would take full-time
Well,
lifeboat job.
if I'm working ashore at the moment, and if the money was right, I would stay on. But as coxswain said, I should still go whether whoever took the job.
You get the same class of men running for the boat, whether the government ran it or whether it was the institution who ever ran it. If the money was supplied to put the boats on station, you'd still get the same class of men running for the boat.
Well, what would you do if the RNLI said they were going to take away this boat and perhaps another one, and they were going to put in one fast patrol boat and you were going to lose your boat? What would you all do about it? Would you try and do and stop them?
No, you couldn't run right.
I think we'd be very upset because it's a part of the village be gone.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
tradition.
Yeah, Maresville always had lifeboat.
Always,
Penlee,
the lifeboat is a lifeboat.
Maresville,
and no matter if it's in Maresville, no matter where in the country, it's tradition.
Yeah.
Caister men never turn back, and that is a tradition.
Certainly.
Never turn back, and it would be the same in this village. It'd be a part of the village that's gone.
Today, as always, the RNLI is committed to making its boats as safe as is humanly possible. They need every aid from radar to nylon warps. The RNLI is committed to making all its 134 ocean-going lifeboats self-righting by 1980. There are almost as many problems as there are lifeboats, as at St Ives, where the boathouse isn't even on the beach, but in the town. Yet, whatever the problems, when men are in peril at sea, be it in supertanker, fishing boat or pleasure yacht, the lifeboatmen of the RNLI will go to their aid. It doesn't matter who's in trouble or why. Whatever the cost, whatever the risk, they'll go. They always have, and they always will. That's the tradition.
Every lifeboat in the Thames estuary has been out during the night, with the first of the autumn gales sweeping up the channel. A fleet of holiday yachts was capsized or dismasted, and more than a score of people were rescued. A report from Broadstairs by June Chappell.
At one stage, 22 people were reported missing, and every lifeboat in the Thames estuary was called out. The Coast Guard helicopter from Manston was almost constantly airborne for several hours. At the end, every life was saved, but 15 yachts have been sunk between Ramsgate and Southend. Then a second wave of Mayday calls started as cross-channel yachts were hit by heavy seas. 7 lifeboats, Harwich and Clacton, Walton and Sheerness, Margate, Ramsgate and Walmer battled to the rescue. All but one have returned safely with vessels in distress.
At Milford-on-Sea in Hampshire, holidaymakers formed a human chain to rescue 5 people from a motor cruiser which had run aground. More strong to gale force winds are forecast for most areas.